Hi everybody, very welcome to yet another Sunday night live stream. As always, I hope that you're doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are out there in the world. And I really hope that you have downloaded the Mentour Aviation app. I know I keep saying that on every one of my live streams, but I cannot overemphasize how important it is right now that you get it, because it's less than a week away from our biggest update yet in the app, and the app is supposed to become this great aviation hub for you guys so that you can ask your questions, get in contact with a professional pilot like myself or some other pilots or someone who's doing flight training in some school somewhere, and maybe you want to ask them a question. Well, all of this is going to be available to you inside of the app within, well, it's going to be like a 3-stage rocket. It's going to be several updates coming within the next few months, but one of the bigger updates is going to be here within less than a week. So use these links here below, get the app and join me and ask some questions, because right now there's people inside of the app here asking questions for this live stream, and in the future it's very likely that these live streams are going to be run through the application. Okay, so it is crucial that those of you guys who are here who really wants to see these live streams and ask your questions, that you get the app. All right, cool. Right, just to show you guys, this is how it looks. Let's see if we can actually get it running as well. Doesn't seem to be working well. Oh, right. I'll try that some other time. So back to today's mission. Those of you who have seen these kind of live streams before knows that you guys can ask questions. If you have something that you really want me to answer, well, then you can use the super chat function here. That will send a little bit of money to the YouTube channel to help me to pay for example, the app update. If otherwise, you can just continue to ask your questions here in the chat like you're doing now, or go into the Mentour Aviation app and go to the chat and start asking your questions there. All right, so I will take super chat questions first, I will get app questions as well, and then I'll take questions from here. The way that I have labeled this live stream today is, how often does a first officer get to fly the aircraft? Because this is a question that I'm getting quite often. And first of all, the first officer and the captain will fly the aircraft almost identical amounts. All right. So the first officer, what we tend to do is, if we're doing 4 flights a day, which we tend to do either 2 or 4 flights, well then the first officer will fly 2 of those flights, and 2 of them he will be or she will be pilot monitoring, and I will fly the rest. Sometimes if the weather is really poor, like we see up in northern countries now when it's loads and loads of snow coming down, or it's very windy close to the limit, especially if the first officer is inexperienced, as in has less than 500 hours on type, well then the captain tends to take those more challenging landings or takeoffs. So there are some occasions where the captain will fly and the first officer will not be able to, but in most cases we kind of do exactly the same job. It's just that the captain is the one that is ultimately responsible for what happens to the aircraft. So I can always take over whenever I feel something is not going the right way, or something is more challenging that we were expecting. Well, then I will just say my controls, the first officer will let go of the controls, I will take over, and we switch roles then. So he or she becomes pilot monitoring, I become pilot flying from that point on. And that can happen at any point during the flight, but it's really, normally that's only happening when we have already tricky conditions. All right? I hope that makes sense. So let's see. We don't have any super chat questions coming up just yet, so I can take some questions here from the normal chat. What do you think of pilotless aircraft? Well, I've actually done a video on that. So if you go in and search for the video, will pilots be replaced by robots? You can see my exact thinking about that. I think that it is inevitable. At some point, it will probably happen. But for a lot of different reasons, including the artificial intelligence technology, which is not really there yet, the legislation, the way that the aircraft cycles goes, as in how long it takes to actually replace an aircraft. Even if the technology is there and a new aircraft exists, it will actually take time to phase out the existing fleet, because they cost billions, and it's not like an aircraft, an airline is going to just switch over just because a new technology exists. Based on that, I think we have a good at least 30 years to run before we can see some pilotless passenger aircraft around, and then it's going to start moving. But that's about what we have. 1 generation more, I'd say, and then we'll probably see a lot of pilotless aircraft out there. Cool. Right, so we have our first super chat questions. Excellent, guys. Xantec, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Hi, Petter. With the modern fly-by-wire 737s, how much feel do the controls have compared to the older hydraulic 737 models? Well, so far there are no fly-by-wire 737s. All right, they all still have the old wires connected to all of the flight controls. And even if they didn't, there would be a center and feel unit that would emulate the feeling of. Let's say that they would, take away those wires. Today, really, we're flying hydraulically, and the forces that we feel are being artificially made already. And I can't really tell. They feel great. I have no problem at all getting the feel for how the aircraft is doing speed-wise and how effective the aileron inputs is and so on. So, to answer your question, even if it was completely fly-by-wire, it wouldn't be a problem. Oh, we have someone here who really, really wants to say hello. He's not actually happy unless he is sitting on top of me all the time. So, Pachi, say hello to the people. Cool. Ever flown to Bratislava from the lamp from Pixar? Yes, and in fact, I will be flying to Bratislava. No, actually, I think I'll be flying to Krakow on Tuesday. Not to Bratislava, but yeah, I fly to Bratislava quite a lot. More questions here. Jose Agramonte, can pilots anticipate and avoid microbursts? Yeah, absolutely. Well, you never really know when a microburst will happen. Okay, but the key to avoiding them is not flying in under cumulonimbus clouds, as in under storm clouds. So this is why we have the weather radar. We know under which potential circumstances that we can face things like microbursts, lightning strikes, wind shears, and we just do not fly into to clouds like that or fly close to them. There's very, very strict regulations to how close to one of those we can come and how close it can be to an airport, while we still can land. So the answer to that is yes, we can avoid them, but you can never really be sure. If you would fly in under a cumulonimbus cloud, 99% of the times you wouldn't get a microburst, but that last 1% you would get one, and that could kill you. So we don't take those kind of chances. Carol Skora. Hey Carol, great to see you. How are things going? You're great, Petter. Thanks for great content. Well, thank you all of you guys who are out there supporting the channel. I'm really, really grateful to all of you. All of the nice comments that you're sending is really, making my day. It makes it much more fun to do these videos and try to come up with new subjects, because after having done about 300-400 episodes, it's starting to be a little bit tricky to come up with new great content from you. But the fact that you are there and I know that you're anticipating more content is what's helping me, continuing. By the way, guys, I also want to send a huge thank you to all of you who are my patrons out there. So my patrons, I know I mentioned this on my live streams a lot, but they are really valuable for the channel. They get to preview my videos. They help me out. They tell me what I should be doing more or less of, or if I should be changing a title, for example, or a thumbnail, and they make sure that I haven't done or said anything stupid on my videos. And also they provide financial support to the channel. If you guys are interested in becoming a patron, if you want to support and have more intimate contact with me directly, well then here in the description of the video you have the link. Just click on that one. Check it, see if it's something for you, and feel free to join the crew if you want to. Right, so let's see. There's more super chat questions coming up here. Why don't airlines have the 13th row? Some airlines do. Most airlines don't. I don't know exactly what the reason is. I think there is a little bit of superstition in there, not on behalf of the airlines, but on behalf of the traveling passengers. So depending on where those airlines are flying, people are more or less superstitious. And of course, if you can make something really easy for you by taking away a row that no one wants to sit on. So some airlines have done that. It's not. Like I said, it doesn't happen everywhere. You will find row 13 somewhere, but yeah, in some cases it doesn't. Why not put 3-point seatbelts on planes from Jörn Birkeland? That's a great question, and of course a 3-point seatbelt would be safer. But I think the reason is that it's basically for your convenience, all right? So they put seat belts in order to make sure that you stay seated in case of turbulence and things like that. But a 3-point seat belt, if everyone were to put a 3-point seat belt on, it wouldn't help very often, right? The times there that it would help are very few, and of course it would restrict people a lot from moving around, from taking care of their kids, from drinking coffee. So I think it's a convenience thing. I think that they have taken basically just a statistical view on it, to saying that the very few times that passengers would actually be helped from a 3-point seatbelt, there are so few that it just doesn't warrant the nuisance that it would cause. That's just my theory, just off the top of my head. But there has to be some reason. We have it in the front, but we have it only for we use it only for takeoff and landing, really. The rest we just use the normal seatbelt like you guys do. So this is great. I love interacting with you guys. This is why I keep doing this. I know that these videos doesn't get as much views, but I also know that this is the best way I have to be able to answer your questions directly. I really enjoy it. Anna wanted to share some exciting news. All right. I have decided to take flying lessons. I do have to meet with the AME first to be sure medication is not prohibited. If not, I'll start as soon as next month. Right, great, good stuff. You have a really exciting time in front of you. Make sure that the flight school that you're going to, if you're going to do this professionally, as in if you're going in to become a professional airline pilot, make sure that you do the suitability test, so that the school asks for the suitability test to be done. That's really important, and I cannot overemphasize how important that is, because what we're seeing, I was talking to CAE just a couple of weeks back, and they were estimating that there are about 7,000 what called dead licenses out there. These are licenses of people who just given up. All right, they've taken the licenses, applied to flight schools, to airlines, haven't been able to get through the selection process, and then basically given up. So they still have the licenses, but it's calculated that they will never find a flying job. This is a tragedy, and this is something that from the beginning of this channel, I've been fighting against happening, because it can be stopped, right? There are suitability tests out there that can give you a good indication, not if you're going to get a job or not, but if you have what it takes, and that has to be done before you start paying tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of euros to become a pilot. All right, so I really want to emphasize how important it is to make sure that your school asks that from you. Okay, and best of luck. Keep me updated. Just send some messages on Facebook or on Instagram, or better yet, on the Mentour Aviation app, so I can see how it's going for you. So, Max With, what about remote controlled airlines? Would you consider going to work in an office building and fly remotely? No. That's the answer to that, right? I became a pilot because I love to fly planes, because I love to feel the acceleration and to fight it during the landing when it's tricky conditions. I don't think that you can muster the same enthusiasm by going and sitting down in an office building somewhere and doing the same. No, there are other things for me to do in that case, like talking to you guys. So no, that's not going to happen. Jake Schroeder, I've heard of first officers upgrading to captains on a different type. Would they have to have a minimum of hours before being able to act as a captain on the type? Yeah, I would assume so, right? There is a possibility to... Well, having said that, no, not really. Like legally you don't. You could have, for example, if I were to try to change to an airline that have direct entry captain positions, I could go directly to that airline and type rate myself on the aircraft that airline flying, and if they think that I'm good enough, I will be starting to fly as a captain immediately on that new type. However, I would have to do line training, okay, and the line training is likely to take a few months and involve a certain number of sectors where I can show to the company and to the line training captains that I'm good enough to fly on that type as a captain. But And that goes if you're doing that internally as well. So if you have an airline that have several types, you could potentially be first officer on a long haul fleet, for example, and then becoming upgraded. And during the upgrading process, you then do a type rating on a short haul aircraft, and you start as a captain there. But once again, there's going to be line flight under supervision, LIFUS, or line training, as we call it in my airline, before you get to do that. Great question, though. So, Tote Sprachen leber länger. Hi, Mentor. Why does the aviation industry keep using knots instead of kilometers per hour or miles per hour? How much exactly is a knot? Have a nice night and keep up the great work. Yeah, this has to do with the fact that the aviation world is still following the maritime industry. It's been doing that from the beginning, and now it's too late to change. Okay, it's since it's kind of everyone is doing kind of the same all over the world. We're using knots. I think a few Russian aircraft might be using kilometers per hour, and I think some the military might be using that as well to a certain extent. But a large extent of the global aviation world are using knots. So we will continue to do that because it's just too complicated to change all over the globe. 1 knot is 1,852 meters per hour. So it's almost twice as much as kilometers per hour. You see, 1 knot is about 1.852 kilometers per hour. So if you just double it, you get an approximation of what you have in kilometers per hour. Great. Okay. I'm getting a little bit behind on my super chat question. I don't want to miss any here. Anthony Okoa. Hi, Mentor. As a captain, how often do you let your first officer make mistakes, and when do you decide to take over? As a training captain, you have to let them do a lot of mistakes. All right. So we will go through, for example, an approach. We will brief it before the approach is flown, and then I will coach them during the approach. So when they disconnect and fly manually, I will continue to coach them. Like, okay, take a little bit of thrust off, pitch down a little bit. You see you're getting a little bit low. Do something about it. Keep them, keep coaching them, but still letting them make small mistakes. I will take over when I see that they won't be able to fix the mistake. That they with their limited experience will not be able to continue safely. Then I will either tell them to go around, or if I think that I can take over and stabilize the aircraft, effectively and safely, I will take the controls. So you have to, as a line training captain, you always have to let people make mistakes, as long as they're not big mistakes and as long as they don't affect the safety of the flight. That is not a problem. That's how people learn, always. I mean, if someone would take over the aircraft every time that you're about to make a mistake, you would never learn. It's basically as easy as that. It tends to happen most times when you take over. It tends to happen during the landing, especially in the beginning or middle part of line training, and if you have really tricky crosswind conditions, for example. Shut up, 777. Have you ever had a first officer asking you to take controls from him or her when they wasn't comfortable to land? Not during the landing itself. That would be something that we would discuss way earlier, because we can see, based on the weather at the airport, for example, based on how what kind of an airport we're coming into, we can have a discussion to see whether or not they feel comfortable. If they feel comfortable, it's unlikely that they're going to ask me to take over during it. It could be if there's something severe happened, but in most cases, no, they would just continue to either a go around or landing. David R. I have flown in first class, and they made us put in a 3-point belt for takeoff landing in first class. Really? Was that maybe in one of those like flatbeds? Or I haven't flown in first class myself, so I can't say anything about that. But good for you. I would love to do that. So if you're an airline executive out there and you see this, I'm going to go to Thailand, by the way, next week. So if you're around the Krabi province, middle of next week or so, then maybe we can meet up for a coffee. But anyway, I would love to fly first class. So I'm flying with Qatar. So Qatar, if you hear me, love to get an upgrade. Very rarely happening, though, unfortunately. But that's interesting to hear that they would do that in first class. I was surprised to hear that. So, Son Peterson, did the Catalonia crisis cause issues in aviation? No, not really. The airports are guarded. They're seen as natural Spanish interests, so they're guarded by Guardia Civil. There was a little bit more of them around when it happened. I got severely delayed because I was stopped in a protest. They cut the roads to the airport, so I couldn't get to the airport, so we were delayed like 3 hours or something because of that, but nothing more than that. Alessandro 7432. Hi Captain, I have a question for you. If you were to open your own airline, Mentour Air, that's a nice ring to it. What types of aircraft would you want to have in your fleet and why? Keep up the absolutely fantastic work. Well, in that highly theoretical airline that I will have, it would be depending on what kind of operation I would be doing. So I am quite impressed by the work that, for example, Norwegian Air Shuttle is doing, Norwegian Long Haul is doing specifically. And I think if it was up to me and I was going to do a long haul operation, I would probably go away with a Dreamliner or an Airbus 350. I think that's kind of where we're heading. Or maybe the 797. We haven't seen really where that's going. Otherwise, the Airbus 320 Neo and the 737 MAX are the obvious choices for short to medium haul. But you also have the Airbus 220 now, which is the old Bombardier series, which looks like a really, really good aircraft. Actually, I would love to get my hands on that and try it out. So it's depending on what kind of operation it's doing. If I were to do a really short haul, let's say I would start up an airline flying from Andorra. Well, there's no airport in Andorra, but the airport is next to it. Well, then I might go for a more suitable short haul aircraft like the Dash Q400, or so Dash 8, or something like that. But it's starting an airline 99 times out of 100 is a bad idea. that's the it's very hard to compete in any meaningful way. You have to have a really set strategy and you have to really know your stuff. Otherwise, starting an airline is a great way to become a millionaire if you're a billionaire, if you see what I mean. Okay, I like the name though. Either a Mentor 360 or Mentor Air, that would be nice. I would like to see that written on an aircraft, even if it wasn't my airline. So, Christoph Esch, when a first officer becomes a captain, how do they learn to move the aircraft on the ground? Line training and simulator. So in the simulator they will get to practice. You don't really get the feeling in the simulator though, unfortunately. You get the kind of hang a little bit of the the tiller, but you have to practice it. You have to practice it online. So it's a large part of the beginning of your command upgrade line training is going to be learning how to taxi in a good way, learning how much you have to overshoot the lines on the 737 in order for the main gear to straddle the center line. That takes a while to do. If you're flying a bigger aircraft, the 777 I think, for example, has yokes, tillers on both sides. In that case, you would have done some taxiing already as a first officer. So once again, it depends, but mostly in the kind of month going up for your command upgrade, you will be having these discussions with me. If you're flying with the line training captain, we will discussing like, okay, so now you see how we're coming up here to a 45-degree turn, right? We do this and that and that, and that's how they learn initially, and then they get the simulator training, and then after that they get the line training. So after that, before we let them go as captains, we have to make sure that they can taxi in a good way. So there we go. Reese Chandler, 13 is unlucky because of Judas was last to sit down in the Last Supper, and when someone was hung, the knot would be around 13 times before tying. Yeah, so there's loads of reasons why 13 is the unlucky number. I don't know them all. This was actually new to me, so thank you, Reese. Every day that you learn something new is a great day. Anna, no, I already have a career. This is for PPL. Right. If in PPL, then, just enjoy it. It's going to be fantastic fun for you. Great. And still, keep me updated. Okay, Andres. Which is more stressful to be? A first officer, a captain, or a line training captain? I would probably, I wouldn't go out on a line to say that it's a line training captain. First officer is stressful in the beginning. All new jobs are, and you have to learn a new skill and everything, so it's stressful, but you can always look over to the left then, and you can ask the captain for help, or the captain can do it if it becomes too hard. So you always have someone to rely on. When you become a captain, all of a sudden, if you look out to the left, the only thing you see is a reflection in the window of yourself, as they used to say. Is no one to ask. Everyone will be looking at you. So when there's a hard decision that needs to be made, everyone in the crew, including passengers, will be looking at you, and you will have to come up with the decisions. So that can become stressful, especially if something really tricky happens. And then on top of that, you have, of course, a line training captain, because then you're sitting, if as a normal captain, you would be able to sit and discuss this with a hopefully experienced first officer, and they will bring all of their experience to help you to make a good decision. So line training captain, not so much. You might be flying with a guy who's doing his first ever day on the 737, and then of course if a tricky situation arises, you won't get too much out of them because they haven't seen it, they have no idea, except for the technical aspects of the aircraft. They wouldn't have seen that kind of situation before. So that becomes much more stressful. And of course on top of that, it's an extra job. All of a sudden you have to not only fly the aircraft safely and operate safely, but you have to teach someone while you're doing that. So line training captain tends to be probably one of the highest workload roles that you can find within an airline. Okay, I'm going to take a normal chat here question as well before I continue with the super chat questions. What advice would you give to an aspiring pilot under the age of 18 from William W? Stay in school is what I would say. Make sure that you pay attention in school. I know that you won't feel that motivated in art class or in gymnasium, like when you go to sports or whatever it might be. But the fact is that all of the subjects that you're taking is probably going to decide whether or not you're going to be accepted into that government-sponsored program you're going for, or maybe the airline will be looking at your grades. And in any case, you need all that knowledge that you get in school when you're going for ATPL theory. So make sure that you use the time in school. You don't want to, when you're 24 years old, realize that you didn't have the grades needed and you need to go back and restudy then. It's just, it's just going to feel like a waste of time. So do that and use the time to find the flight school that you want to go for. Find out, which flight school is your target, go to open days, see what it is about, talk to previous students. All of that preparation that needs to be done, you can do that already because you have plenty of time, right? The more preparation you do, the more successful you will be in the end. So use that. And if you want to, guys, if you want to go in and discuss these kind of things, go into the Mentour Aviation app, all right? Just tag, like I say down here, there, at Mentor, that will send me a message, or just tag any of the other experienced pilots that are inside of there, and we'll be able to keep the discussion. And like I said, within a week or so, there's going to be an upgrade that is going to make it much better, and then it's just going to get better and better over the coming months. I really want you guys to be in there. And if you have the app, if you're sitting here right now, you know that you got the notifications from the app that this live is going to happen. Well, then please go into the app store that you're using and give the app a good review and grading. Okay, it helps also to spread, because we're going to need to get more and more people in to make that community, that positive, constructive community that I want to try to create. All right. So back to the super chat. Minoch, where in Germany can I take simulator sessions? I think there is a site called Sky4U, which is supposed to have really good courses that I think you can drop in there as well. So check out Sky4U. I think they have a few locations in Germany actually, and I've only heard good things about them so far. I haven't been there though, so I can't completely guarantee it, but from what I've heard and from colleagues that I really respect that has been there as well, Sky4U is supposed to be very good. Tote Sprachen Leberlängen, again. Thank you very much for supporting. Hi again, Mentor. Has your plane ever been hit by ground service vehicle? No, mine hasn't, at least not that I've been aware of. I've found damages that have delayed me because of potential ground vehicle damage. I've plenty of colleagues who've been hit by vehicles both on the wings and close to the loading base, which is where it normally happens. It's very important if you guys are working on the ramp, you guys watching this, that if something like that happened, that you immediately report it, okay? Because it's really important that we get an engineer to have a look at any type of damage on the aircraft before we dispatch. All right. So good question. Arnier. Does pilots have favorite aircraft registrations and not so light aircraft registrations? What seems cursed but is airworthy but gets the job done? I can honestly say that I don't, okay? But that's because I fly in an airline that have, only pretty much new aircraft. The oldest ones get just sold off, because what tends to happen is as the aircraft get older, they get some little kinks to them. Not big, nothing like you say. They're still very much airworthy, but maybe they have a little bit more outstanding hold item list items, stuff that needs to be fixed, But in my airline, not so much, because, like I said, they just keep getting upgraded. We keep getting new aircraft in. So in my case, no. I know that there are airlines where, there are some individual airplanes that people like to fly less. But at the end of the day, we're professionals. We do our job, and if the aircraft is deemed airworthy by the engineers, then that's what we do. We fly it. But it is a pain when you have an aircraft that doesn't have an outer throttle that's working, for example. It's just more workload on you. So that happens sometimes. But like I've always said, and like I keep saying in all my videos, if you're flying an aircraft that is flying for a European airline, a Western airline, an airline that is allowed to fly within the European Union or in the US, well, then you don't have to be worried. Okay, because that aircraft has been deemed safe by a certified good organization. So don't worry about that. Jake Schroeder, if a first officer have more hours than a captain, who would do a difficult landing? Great question, because that does happen. In some cases, people don't want to upgrade. So I have a friend of mine, for example, who's been first officer for as long as I've been a pilot, so 18 years. He doesn't want to upgrade for the simple reason that it's very likely that he would have to move base then. And if he has family, he has children, stuff, he doesn't want to move base. He's on gold contracts, which means, he's earning quite good money anyway. So just decided not to go for command. And if he were to fly with a captain who has just converted onto type or something like that, then it's likely that if it's really bad weather, the captain would say, well, in my opinion, it's probably safer that you do this landing and just hand over the controls to him. So a good captain doesn't need to be the best pilot in the flight deck. He just needs to be, or she just needs to be the one that takes the correct decisions. All right. So taking correct decision might be that someone else is doing it. I delegate all the time. If I fly with someone who's a wizard, if I fly with an engineer, there are some of the pilots who are ex-aircraft engineers. If I fly with one of those and we have a very tricky technical issue, I would of course turn to them and say, listen, in your expertise, what do you think this is? How do we best deal with it? And listen to them. That's how you are as a good leader. You take in all of the feedback that you can get from your team, and you utilize that to make the team decision and the team work as good as possible. That's what your job is. So great question. Actually, that is something that almost would suffice for a video of some sort. So Richard B. Simmons, visit Houston. I'd love to go for a go over to the States and do a little bit of tour. I know that there's a lot of you guys watching this who are from the United States, and I would love to come over and say hello to you guys. Maybe come to Oshkosh. That's something that I would have loved to do. Oh, as you know, guys, when I'm starting to hit the 35-minute mark, then my voice is starting to give up, but I will push through. Xantec, can time be 24 hours on the app and not AM/PM format? I can ask the developers and see what they say. Why do from StarCraft Guy 1, why do aircraft like Avro RJ use 4 small engines? Wouldn't 2 big engines work? And what decides to have 2, 3, 4 engines on big or small airplanes? Well, I've done videos on this, so I'm not going to go through all of it. You can see my videos about, why are the big giants disappearing, about what happened to the tri-jets, and where the engines are being placed. In the case of the Avro RG, actually, that one is a bit of a special case because it has 4 very small engines. But the good thing with those small engines is that they're very quiet. Okay, they're very quiet, and that makes them perfect for flying into places like London City, for example, where they won't do too much noise over flying central parts of London. They can actually do that, and that way they found a niche. All right. In most cases, having 4 small engines is not a good idea, okay? Because it costs a lot of money to maintain those 4 engines, and they produce less thrust than 2 slightly bigger engines would for much, much less money, okay? So in most cases, it's not a good idea. That's why you don't see a lot of 4-engine small jets around. But like I said, the RJ has found a little niche. So, Marcin NGX, hi Mentor, how to calculate the actual cruise level? Like the flight level is 330, have a few hours into the flight climbs to flight level 410. Well, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the weight of the aircraft primarily. The FMC will calculate what the most economical level will be, and that tends to be about 700 feet below the max level of the aircraft. That's what the aircraft does, all right? We input all of the performance data, how much fuel we have, how much passengers we have, how much weight we have in total. And then the aircraft will, depending on how long the flight is, try to get us as high as possible, to get us as close as possible to our optimum level. However, that doesn't need to be the optimum level, because what the aircraft doesn't understand is that we might have a lot of headwind or tailwind depending on which level we're at. This is why we're using a flight planning service. In our case, our airline is using Lufthansa's flight planning service called Lido, and they look at all of those things. So they decide, depending on high level winds, which, if we should follow the FMC advice and go as high as possible, or if we should go maybe with a lower level where we tend to have maybe 100 knots tailwind that we would lose if we climb too high. So it's quite complex, and this is why we have really smart people doing it for us, so we don't have to. But if you are doing it on the sim, for example, if you just go into the cruise page on the FMC with the weight that you have, you're going to have an optimum level. You can just use that level. Don't go over the max level. It's not a good idea. So there we go. Gurai, Tank, got the PPL pass. So hey, congratulations. Excellent. Come into the chat later on and tell me all about it. Thanks for the motivation, and now it's time for ATPL. Yep. Now, if the ATPL theory is coming up, then it's time to kind of, put your roll up your sleeves and start studying, because that's hard work ahead of you. But you'll also see that now you're getting into the real stuff. Then it's going to feel a lot of motivation for you when you start realizing that you're about to start a CPL and you're closing in on the bigger aircraft. So good luck with your studies. Jose Agramonte again. Thank you, Jose. Hi again. Love your content. What causes so-called air pockets? What causes an airplane to fall so suddenly in otherwise calm flight? Jose, if you check out, just a few weeks back, I did an episode about turbulence. And what you're feeling as an air pocket is actually turbulence. It's not a pocket of air. It's just, you're coming into a rotor of some sort, a little bit of a disturbance in the air. It feels like you're falling a lot, but in reality, you're only falling a couple of feet. Those air pockets, the worst ones that you feel, when everyone's like, "Whoa!" in the seats. Generally, in the flight deck, we notice them, but on the instruments you won't even see them. Okay, so they are caused by clear air turbulence. Could be caused by a lot of wind being pushed over a mountain, for example, causing these vortexes after, or jet streams causing that. But check out the the turbulence video. It will explain a lot. Bikey 4. What do you think of being a corporate pilot? And do you think it would be something you would consider for career? Well, not me. Corporate pilots do a fantastic job. If you mean what I think you mean, which is private pilot, basically flying for companies like NetJets or a private company or maybe a sheikh down in the Middle East or something like that. It's a different type of job, right? It can be very varying flights, as in you can fly to very different parts of the world and see a lot of things. Generally speaking, it tends to be a lot of time away from your family, so you have to be available to work maybe for 4 weeks, so you won't see them at all, and then you're back home for 4 weeks or something like that. Doesn't suit me. I have no intention of doing that. Some people love it. I have friends who have done it for decades, and they couldn't imagine doing anything else. They tend to fly quite little. At least if you're flying for a private owner, then you might only be doing a couple of 100 hours a year maximum, and the rest of the time you'll be spending in hotels all over the world, which sounds luxurious when you hear it, but it depends a lot on who you're with, who your captain is, and where you are, and if you want to be there. I think that even me being in a luxury hotel in Hawaii would be a pain if I wanted to be home with my wife and my kids. So those are things that you need to think about. But otherwise, you get to see some cool stuff. If you want to go out and fly a G5 with U2 on their world tour, I wouldn't mind doing that. That would be awesome. But most of the case, that's not the case. It's going to be some rich business guy having his own business jet flying from Moscow to, I don't know, Vladivostok. So yeah, since I don't have any experience on it, I shouldn't really be talking too much about it. But that's the kind of feedback that I've gotten from the friends that I have who does it. Andrew Walder, what do you do to ensure you don't make dangerous human errors when things get stressful, like in unavoidable bad weather or low fuel conditions? Andrew, that's a very good question. All of our procedures are made to avoid human error. Right? We know that human error, that we are all human, that we all make mistakes, and I do make mistakes. But this is why we have standard operating procedures, both because they are made to make sure we don't make mistakes, like setting the wrong altitude when we get clearance or stuff like that. It's also made so that the other pilot knows what we're supposed to do. That way, when I make an error, when I make a mistake, my first officer will see, well, he wasn't supposed to do that. Petter, weren't we supposed to? And I was like, oh yeah, actually, great, that's it. So the procedures are there to help us. And then we have decision-making models. When something really bad is about to happen, let's say we have a fuel leak, so we're running low on fuel. Well, then we will use these decision-making models like PIOSI, for example: problem, information, options, select, execute, evaluate. Right, we will go through that. So what is the problem? How do you perceive the problem? Right, this is it. We have a fuel leak. Okay, so information. What kind of airports do we have around us? What kind of weather do we have? What's the status like in the back of the cabin? Okay, so what options do we have? Well, the option is the best weather information we've just received is from that airport down there. We have enough fuel to make it down there, and even if we would flame out, we will be able to kind of glide the aircraft down to that airport. All right, great. So select that, we execute it, and then on our way down, we continuously evaluate. How is it looking? Are we losing more fuel? Is anything happening? Things like that. So we follow procedures to make sure we don't make bad decisions and bad mistakes. And then on top of that, you have to have a certain personality to it. And the more experience you have, the less stress you generally get, because you've seen similar situations. Maybe not something as severe, but similar things have happened, and that helps you. That's the best answer I can get to that, basically. Alessandro, 7432. I'll be a lifetime customer to Mentour Air if you open it. I became an aviation enthusiast about 2 years ago when I flew as a passenger on a Douglas DC-7 with a private company in Florida. Well, cool, right? Then I have my first customer. That's great. Now I just need a few million more and we should be set to go. DC-7, that's really cool. Congratulations. That's not a lot of people who've been flying that, actually. So great, and welcome to the channel. I hope you're inside of the app as well and participate in the all of the work that we do in there and all of the fun conversations that's going on every day. Oh, by the way, guys, if you have the app, I know there's been a lot of people asking me, well, I get notifications, right? Some people don't like notifications at all. Some people love the notifications. And what I've started to do is I send out notifications when something big happens. So let's say that there's been a new breakthrough in an investigation, for example, or there's been, God forbid, a crash, or something funny is happening inside of the aviation industry. When I find something like that, I have friends, and if you guys have the app, you can send me, if you go to submit feedback, if you see something interesting, please feel free to send me an email with a link, okay? If I like it, I will then push it out as a news thing. And with the upgrade, one of the upgrades is going to be that I will put a dedicated header for that, so that you can go directly to the news header and you can have a look to see what the latest one is. Because right now what I'm doing is I'm just shooting it out, and when you get the notifications, well, then you click on it and it will only take you to the bottom of the chat, right? Because the app is really simple. This is why I'm doing this upgrade. And then you have to scroll up to kind of find the my message with the link. I know that is the case, and I'm aware that it doesn't work great, but I do keep kind of sending out the same message a few times. So even if you get the notification a bit later, well, then you'll be able to find the link. Okay, this is because the app was not made as a news app. I'm just using whatever resources I have as a good pilot to make sure that you guys get as good service as possible. But I am aware of it, right? So, and if you guys don't like notifications at all, then you can go into the app settings and take away the notifications. I do, however, advise against that, because it means that you won't get notification when someone wants to talk to you in the chat either. In a future version, you will be able to set these things up, okay? Cool. Davenport Stable Ltd. Hi, why have the runways here in the UK been closed due to a little amount of snow, but Stockholm and Oslo planes land on snowy runways? Well, that's because the UK airports are not prepared to take care of the amount of snow that's coming. In Oslo and in Stockholm, they have these huge machines. They're blowing and brushing at the same time, and they can go in kind of like a V shape, and they can clear an entire runway. So even if there's a little bit of snow left on those runways, they've still managed to make the braking action good enough for aircraft to land. While in the UK, if it starts snowing, well then, it just, braking action disappears, becomes too slippery to land. They can't keep up with it, and in order to stay safe, they just close the airport down and wait for the snowing to stop. You would think that some of these airports would be used to winter by now, since it happens regularly once a year. But maybe the investment of buying these huge machines for only a few days a year is not worth it. I don't know, but it always strikes me as weird as well that that there wouldn't be any kind of preparation for something as usual as winter. Shaman Weinberger, you've sent in a super chat, but you didn't put a message into it. You have to do that. Now, just go to settings inside of the app, send me a message to it, provide feedback, and just write super chat, and I'll try to answer it for you. What's the hardest, from Dennis Wong, what's the hardest decision you've ever made in flight? The thing is, you don't make those kind of hard decisions. Normally, the right decision is an obvious decision. So I've made decisions, for example, to offload a 2-year-old. Now, you might say, how can you do that? But that was because the parents couldn't control the baby. The cabin crew couldn't get the parents or the guardian who was traveling to keep the baby safe during the takeoff. The baby was allowed, or the 2-year-old was allowed, to run around and climb on the chairs and under seats and stuff. No control, couldn't keep it under control. So after much discussion with my cabin crew, with my colleague, I made several PAs who decided that this is an unaccompanied minor. We can't take that. It's not safe for the child. So the child and the guardian had to leave. So that wasn't an easy decision to take. There's no guidance on things like that. But the end objective always have to be: is it this safe? Is it safe for the passenger involved? Is it safe for the passengers surrounding if something would happen? If the answer to that is no, well, then there's no other decision to take. So once again, that one was a very special one, and it happened several years back. But it's one of those things that, there's no guidance, there's no manual for things like that. In flight, like I said, generally speaking, there's no really hard decisions. It's just like, it's not like the Hudson River thing where you would just, okay, we have to just get the aircraft down with minimum third-party damage. That was a hard decision to take. But God forbid, so far I've been lucky, and it's been diverting, things like that. Do we divert? We have a sick passenger, where do we go? Those kind of decisions, which needs to be done fairly quickly, but they're not really hard. That's in the way that you're thinking about them. Arnjer, if you had chance, who YouTuber or social media pilot you would like to meet and greet? My favorite would be Dutch Pilot Girl. Now, why is that, Arnjer? Okay. Social media person that I would like to meet, YouTuber. It's a hard one. Flight Chops, I think. I would like to meet. I really like his production. I really like what he does on his YouTube channel. I think it's really good production value, really good stuff. Otherwise, I know and I have met Pilot Maria. She's lovely. And all of the Swedish Flying Mafia on Instagram. But guys, if I am on Instagram as well. If you haven't already checked it out, there's a link down here as well. Just Mentour_pilot. You'll find me. I'm going for 100k soon. So you guys can help me by sharing the profile or something. That would be cool. But yeah, to answer your question, I think Stevie One Canivo and Flight Chops. I think I would love to go over to the States and do something together with them. I forgot to mention. Tuesday, guys, if you listen to the Pilot to Pilot podcast, you can find the podcast anywhere that you find your podcast, really. Just go to Pilot to Pilot podcast. He's doing an interview with me, okay, on Tuesday. That will be released. So make sure that you get that podcast and give him some love, because he's also doing a great job on social media when it comes to interviewing different personalities within the aviation sphere. If I got to choose other people that I would love to meet, Sully will be interesting to meet, just to have a discussion about decision making, and he has such vast experience from the US market, which I don't. I would love to be able to give you that perspective. Otherwise, he's not really a pilot, but Sir Richard Branson is someone that I would love to get in contact with as well, to see and hear a little bit more about the Virgin Galactic program and what they're doing. That would be awesome. Love to go over there and see what they're actually doing as well. So there's loads of things that I would love to do. Thomas Bath, why PFD doesn't work without the IRS alignment? Because the PFD, the primary flight display, to a large extent, is built on the IRSs, the laser gyros that we have. That's what's giving us the attitude, for example. Without most of what the IRS are producing, there would be nothing to see on the primary flight display. That's why we still have the standby. Hi again, Peter from Sam Petros. Hey Sam, good to have you here. Sam is one of our core contributors when it comes to aviation news and stuff. He's the one sending me most of the news that you guys get out through the app. So you can thank Sam for most of that. It's fantastic work, Sam. I need more contributors like you. To make sure that we don't miss any kind of cool events inside of the aviation industry. This is a great way to pull people inside of the app, to actually get them to talk about current events and stuff. Great job. Can you fly military aircraft? There's a difference between can I and would I. I would be able to fly military aircraft if I received the proper training. If someone would put me in a Jaws 39 Gripen right now, I wouldn't. I would have no idea. They're very different in philosophy, in the way that they're flown, in the way that they're built, in human to machine interface, all of that. If I got some training to fly like a C-130, like an Hercules, that I would probably be able to fly easier because it would be closer to what I'm flying now. But once again, I would need training on it. But no, the answer to the question is no. They wouldn't be able to put me in a military aircraft and have me fly it. Once we're airborne, sure, to kind of stick a rudder to keep it around, I would probably be able to do. Get it down on the ground, maybe. I would love to try though. Alessandro 7432. Thank you, Alessandro. If you have an engine failure with a 4-engine aircraft like the Airbus 340, are the procedures the same to the ones talked about in the engine failure videos? I would suspect that they're a little bit different, given the redundancy, the extra redundancy that you have with 3 engines working. The Airbus 340 is a special because it was so underpowered, or is so underpowered, that you would probably need to do like a drift down even with 3 engines. But yeah, with 3 engines, it's likely that you'll be able to continue to fly, for example. While with 2 engines, you would have to start looking at a diversion immediately. So there is some changes to it, but in theory, the handling and things is going to be similar. Okay, so Sierra Romeo Mike, how much harder is it to fly a 737-200 compared to say an 800? Well, the 200 is supposed to be better to handle. Everyone who's flown the 200, I haven't unfortunately, says that it's like driving a race car compared to a normal car. Like the 800 is more sluggish, it's bigger, it's heavier, its turning radius are bigger and things like that. The 200 is kind of the size that the 737 was supposed to be when it was constructed. So handling wise, it's supposed to be better. Of course, it's Jurassic technology, so it means that it would take me a while to get used to the old clocks and the basic T structure again. But harder, no. And after a little bit of training, I think you'll be able to fly the 200 just as well as an 800. It's less likely to tail strike. It was and is a fantastic machine. Anthony Ochoa, what's the longer flight that you've had to take? The longest flight I've done so far is from Seattle to Dublin. It took 10 hours on a 737. Straight flight from Seattle to Dublin. Fantastic flight. Great. I hope to get to do that one or something similar again. Alright, so Jake Schroeder, any plans to come to the EAA Air Venture in Oshkosh? Flight shops at Stevie Knievi are usually there. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to start looking into that. I don't think that I'm off, unfortunately. I'm gonna have a look. I might have because I'm since Bose Aviation is sponsoring the channel now. There might be a possibility to get me over to Oshkosh. We'll see what happens. I would love to do that because I would love to meet up with you guys, and those guys would be awesome. So, Sherep 777, Flight Shop is currently getting ready for his written IFR. Wish him luck. By the way, he's from Canada. Yep, I know. And I'm gonna send him a message right after this. Right, I do have a little bit of contact with him. So, Steve, if you're watching, best of luck, man. I'm betting he's not, though, unfortunately. Alright, guys, so that's it when it comes to Super Chat questions for now. You don't have to send any more Super Chat questions because my voice is giving up anyway. 737 versus 747 video with Captain Joe. I don't think that's going to happen. People keep asking me about doing collaboration with Captain Joe. I haven't heard anything from him in 6 months. I don't think that he's interested in it, and I'm getting less and less interested as well. So some questions from the normal chat here then inside of the Mentour Aviation app. Leonidas, Mentor, my parents landed in the Maldives today, and during cruise they hit a bit of hard turbulence, and the only thing they saw was the speed decreasing, but nothing about level change. Why might a pilot only decrease the speed? Well, it's very hard, unless they were in the cockpit, it's very hard for them to say what actually happened. So I can't really answer that question, unfortunately, Leonidas, because I don't think that they just reduced the speed, unless they were very close to their maximum speed and there was a big increase in speed. They might have taken off some thrust in order to make sure that they get a little bit more margin to the overspeed conditions, which I'll talk about in a different video. But without knowing more, I can't really say much. Mentor, ever been to the Pilot Expo? It's in Berlin later this month. No, I haven't. I'm not scheduled to do either, but I will go to Friedrichshafen on the Fly Expo there. That's going to be later on this month. So if you guys are around Germany, then it's likely that I will be there. So you guys can come over there and say hello. Kioris, check your DMs on Instagram. I don't check my DMs on Instagram, and there's a good reason for that. It's because I just can't, I can't handle all of the different social media accounts. I can't answer questions on everyone, and I draw the line at Instagram. So at the Instagram, I put up, awesome pictures from when I'm out flying, from things I see, stuff like that. I put up stories, but I can't keep up with all of the direct messaging. That's why I have the Mentour Aviation app. That's why I try to answer some questions that comes in on Facebook as well, on email stuff, but it's just hundreds, if not thousands of questions. So no, DMs on Instagram, unfortunately not. You're gonna have to go into the app if you want to contact me directly. So, guys, that is me ready for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. As always, it's lovely to have all of you here. It's great. I can see that there's about 740 of you right now that's here, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm see if I can transition over to my app, but for some reason this doesn't work. Oh well, it was supposed to show you how the Mentour Aviation app works anyway, and it doesn't right now. So what I want to say as a finishing line, guys, is that if you want to take part of this experiment that I'm doing, I'm trying to create a truly global, positive, constructive media platform where you, who might be just a little bit interested in aviation, can meet up with someone like me who's been working for 18 years. Or if you want to become a flight student and you want to talk to other flight students in a way that's really constructive, no questions are stupid, well then please get into the Mentour Aviation app right now. And within a week or so, you're going to set some huge differences, some huge changes that's coming up. I am really excited. All right, this is why I keep pushing the app out to everyone now, because I think that this is the beginning of something really big. I'm also trying to, and this I can't promise you right now, but I'm trying to get, mentorpilot.com. I'm trying to integrate that together with the app so that people will be able to use desktops as well. That will probably take a while though. I have a great guy that is working on trying to help me to adapt that together with the app. So hopefully we'll be able to make this huge kind of community where you can go in and you can really feel like you're part of something where people will be helping you. No one will ever laugh at you. Whatever question you have, why does aircraft have wings? Why don't we use soup instead of aviation fuel? Someone will come in and give you a good answer to your question, providing that you want a good answer. Okay? That's it, guys. That's it. That's all I have for today. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are out there. And now, see you inside of the app. I'm going to go over there right now and start chatting away. Okay? Bye-bye.